always say that if Chris Stapleton, Maren Morris, and Bruno Mars like had a child, I would be that child. I wanna have it all right now, but sometimes you gotta wait for the good thing. Feel like we're going round and round, but sometimes you gotta wait for the good thing. You may know her from her songs Mood or Better with Wine. Please welcome Erin Grand to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So just to kind of start off, what was like your first experience with music, or what made you take a liking to music?
Yeah, I grew up singing in church, and that's kind of what made me start my career. So grew up singing in the church and turned into a worship leader full-time as a job, and then started to realize that I wanted to go to Nashville, and I was way more into country music than gospel. Still love my gospel music, but country music was where it was at for me. So decided to just kind of pack it up and head on out to Nashville. But church was kind of the start of that.
Mm-hmm. And so you've been making kind of like pop country music during your career.
Yes.
Do you think there's any point where you might go back to those gospel roots, maybe come out with a gospel song, gospel album at any point?
Yeah, I actually... I've never thought too deep into it yet, just because I'm really trying to build up my country artistry right now. Mm-hmm. But I could definitely see myself later in my career putting out a gospel record or a single, whatever it may be, just to show kind of where my roots came. So yeah, for sure. I think later in the future.
Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, you're just kind of dipping your feet into the music game, pretty new. What tips or advice would you give to other people just starting their music career, or just trying to get their name out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I did was I went out and went to rounds and went out at night and watched people play. And then afterwards I would go up to them and introduce myself and just, say, hey, loved your music. It's very relatable to what I write. Would you love to write sometime? Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of how those connections start. And then I think another thing too, I've always been told, is to put yourself in a room with people who are better than you, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're in a room full of people just like you. So you want to be in a room full of people who are just way more experienced and who are better than you, because you're going to grow more as an artist and as a writer when you're in the room with experienced people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you found that kind of networking, getting to know people with music similar to yours, and that people kind of more experienced or better than you in music really helped.
For sure. Absolutely. That's how I'm with my best friends down here.
Mm-hmm. And so before you kind of went off on your own, started making country music, you start off with a musical duo with a friend of yours, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I actually started with a full band. I want to say I was 13 when that started. And the guitar player who I went into the duo with at the time was 10. So she was 10.
Very young
I was
band.
Yes, very, very young, secular / Christian band. So we played a lot of Christian music, and we also played a lot of secular music. And so we would play everywhere. I mean, literally anywhere we'd be asked. And sometimes that was in the center of a mall. Sometimes that was at a bar really late at night where we weren't allowed to even get in unless our parents were with us to play. Mm-hmm. And then, private parties and events and things like that. And then everybody grew up and we were starting to go to high school, and we were going to different high schools, and everybody just kind of wanted to do their own thing. But the guitar player and I, Madison, she and I still wanted to stick with the music thing. And so we just stuck to it, and we did a duo. And then around my senior year of high school, so junior, senior year, 2016 into 2017, we decided to split up. She wanted to go into nursing and health and all that kind of stuff. And so she went into that, and she thought that was more her dream, and I totally supported that, and things ended, we're still great friends. Mm-hmm. So it was nothing weird. We just had different career paths in mind, and I wanted to move to Nashville, and so that's what I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so kind of either on that
come up with bands and friends, or now currently trying to get your name out there, have there been any like obstacles or roadblocks that have kind of made you feel down or like thought that you wouldn't make it?
Yeah, definitely. So I moved to Nashville during, 2 weeks before the virus came into the country. So so great timing. I moved February of 2020, and then the tornado hit Nashville the day after I moved in. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know about that, there was a massive F4 tornado that came through the city, and it destroyed a huge part of the city, which was just so heartbreaking. And that definitely put a complete stop on everything going on in town. But I learned a lot about the community during that, just how strong everybody was. And then, a couple weeks later, the virus came in and COVID happened. And then, literally we couldn't do anything. So there was a lot of struggle there, like trying to figure out, well, can we write online? Maybe. Can we still get together? Well, no, we can't. So there was just like all these little things that you had to learn super last minute, because the world was not prepared, obviously, for something like this. And so I would say that's probably the biggest thing that has happened so far in my career of music, is this crazy COVID-19 stuff. Mm-hmm.
And you had to continue trying to make music during this. So how was your like creative process, or like the effort that goes into a song? How has that changed because of the virus?
Well, I would say I got a lot more creative because I was forced to just take a beat and like sit with my guitar or with my piano and really figure out how to write songs. Like, I really didn't start co-writing or writing truly for myself until I moved down here 2 years ago. It forced me to learn how to do the songwriting stuff and to like really listen to artists and who I want to be similar to, and like listen to their albums and hone in on that kind of stuff. And so I got really creative actually during that period, and I wrote some of what I think are my best songs during that time. And Heartless was one of them, and Heartless just came out a couple weeks ago. So
yeah. And so you kind of mentioned that, like sitting around, like listening to other artists' albums, like trying to hone into that creative mindset. What like kind of artists do you kind of listen to get into that creative energy, to get some inspiration from?
Yeah, that's a great question. My favorite people ever to listen to are probably Chris Stapleton and Maren Morris. I always say that if Chris Stapleton, Maren Morris, and Bruno Mars like had a child, I would be that child. So I try to like listen to those three artists, and those three are the ones who inspire me a ton. And Hayley Whitters is also another one who just kind of newly sparked into my career, that I've really loved a ton too. So I would say those four are the main probably people that I listen to the most.
And so listening to them, you want to like take inspiration from them. You want them to help you with your creative process, but then obviously you need some element of your own sound, your own personality. How do you kind of balance that, and where do you kind of draw the line between like how someone else influences it and where you kind of start to take over and put your own flair on things?
Yeah, I think honestly just the lyrics are really important when it comes to that. Like, really lyrically basing your songs off of things that have happened in your life, because there isn't, we all can relate to things, but nobody's story is the same. So if you're really focusing on writing things that are true to you, things that you would say, things you would do, experiences that you have gone through, and you put them into a song, then it's not going to sound like anybody else's, because it's your story and you lived it. So I would say that really is what makes it different.
And it may not be exactly, but I think a lot of those songs where artists talk about their own experiences are ones where people listen to it and they relate to it because they've gone through something like that, or they've had moments where they felt like that, and that really helps people connect with the song.
Totally, absolutely.
And so during your career, you've won back-to-back honors of Female Vocalist of the Year at the Midwest Country Music Organization Awards. How did it feel winning it that first year? And what was your reaction like when you found out that you had gotten it the second year in a row?
Well, the first year in a row, both years in a row were extremely surprising because the people who I was up against were so much more mature in their careers and voices are so incredible. And that's always just an honor to win. And both years I said in my kind of speech or whatever, however you want to say it, I had said that I wanted to share it with everybody because I feel like I did not deserve to win 2 years in a row. But so I wanted to share it because I really felt like everybody deserved that award, and every woman, you know, needs to know how much her voice is heard, especially in this industry. So that was something I didn't want to take on myself, especially since a lot of those women too are some of the women who I looked up to at the time in my career. I knew them so well, and I played shows with them, and they've let me share the stage with them. And so I wanted to share it with them too, just because of that. You know, they've helped me along my way.
Yeah. And so you were saying like you thought they might have won it because they were older or had more experience. How, like, in what ways have you seen your age kind of affect your career, if it has affected it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Honestly, I really haven't felt like there's been any negative energy towards my age in this industry or in my career. Really, the younger you are, sadly, the more people are attracted to you in this industry because they can build you up and they can form you. And if you're way older coming into the industry, it's a little bit harder because you've already formed yourself. And the industry always wants to make you. They want to make you who you are. But I think it's really important to like stand your ground and be, you know, more mature and learn
be
that
authentic to who you are.
Yeah, being authentic. And just because you are 22 or just because you are 54, like, you know, it is harder in both ways, but just like stick to you and it'll mold itself and, you know, it'll all get figured out. I've never had anything so far that has been negative towards my age, luckily. Yeah. So I'm sure it'll come though.
And so making country music, being a country artist, there are people who kind of don't really like country or like don't see country on the same level as like other popular genres like pop or hip hop. Why do you think that is? Yeah,
honestly, I feel like that's a hard question to answer because most of the people that I know are huge country fans, but I definitely know that there's people out there who are more on the pop side of things, and I think that's why there's the beauty in the fact that there is a pop country genre.
Yeah.
Because it gives that perfect blend of like the people who are really into pop and don't love country as much can kind of fade into the country a little bit, knowing that there's some pop elements in there. And then vice versa, the people who are really into country but don't love pop, they get those elements as well, and there's like just this good mixture to where it doesn't feel like either genre is really clashing too hard with each other. So Kelsey Ballerini is a really good example of that. She's done a really incredible, and Taylor Swift, like both of them have done a really incredible job of marketing to their pop fans and also marketing to country fans and like making them all come together and loving just one song or one album.
Yeah. And so like you were saying, like Taylor Swift, we've seen artists like Lil Nas X with Old Town Road. This pop country genre has really like come to like a big rise in popularity recently. Do you think it's a genre that's going to continue growing?
Yeah, I really do. I think just because so many people are so into country and pop, it's just become one of those genres that's going to be never ending because people love the modern day pop and people love country. And honestly, I think it was brilliant. Whoever really started the pop country thing, there's arguments over who really brought that into place, but whoever did it, I think was brilliant. And I don't know. I think it's a beautiful genre, and I think it will stick around for for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, like there's argument over who did something, and I feel like in music it's just such a big industry with so many people doing things that like maybe someone says that like Old Town Road by Lil Nas X was the first one, but maybe it's just like the first popular one, and someone in like Nashville or Oregon or like someone who doesn't really have their name out there did it first, and they just haven't been heard yet.
Right, totally. That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. And so during your career, has there been like a person, whether it's another artist, someone you know personally, someone in your family, that has like inspired you in life or in music just to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my parents, my whole extended family, everybody back home, I'm from Minnesota, so everybody back home is extremely supportive. Of course, my parents were the ones who always were the ones telling me to, you know, pick up your stuff and move out to Nashville, or, you know, keep making music, you know, don't go to college, just do the music thing. And actually, most of my teachers were the same way as well going through high school, because academically, I did not want to go to college. I didn't want to do anything academically, and I knew music was what I wanted to do. And so I was so blessed to know that my teachers and my parents and everybody in my extended family were just on board with me picking my stuff up and moving out to Nashville. Mm-hmm. And, you know, all my friends too. I mean, really everybody. I can't even think of a person in my life who has not been supportive of this journey.
And it's amazing that you have kind of support like that, or like a support system like that. But like,
yes.
And not everyone's fortunate to have something like that. Some people maybe think that they want to get into music, don't want to go to college, but like their parents are like strict and want them to go to college, and then afterwards, if they still want to pursue music, then they'll let them. But like,
that is most of the people that I've met down here. That's kind of their story, was their parents were really lenient about it, or weary about it, not lenient, sorry. They were really weary about it at first, and not wanting their, you know, son or daughter to move off and just totally forget about everything college-wise, which to me, I'm glad I had parents who were on the side of not needing college in life. And I know that's like super controversial, but for me, college is a huge waste of money if you want to get into the music business. And obviously you need it for, you know, doctors and lawyers and all that kinds of stuff. But if you're trying to do music, I just would never tell somebody to go to college. I would never, ever tell somebody that. So I'm just really blessed that my parents weren't on that side.
And so now, just like giving a hypothetical, let's say there's Joe from Wisconsin who he wants to go out and start making music. He's been doing it for a few years and he thinks he can really make it, but like he's like junior, senior in college. His parents want him to go to college. He doesn't. He kind of wants to skip college, like really pursue music full time. What words of advice and like wisdom would you give to him, and what kind of words would you have for the parents who want him to go to college?
Well, I think going back to the age thing, ultimately, if your parents are saying you need to go to college, you got to listen to your parents. They're your parents, you know? So it's like kind of a battle that you can't win. Yeah. But back to the age thing, it's like you are still so young once you are done and graduated with college. I mean, you're 23-ish, so it's like, you know, if you got to do it, and just get through it, and you're still going to be 23 once you're done. And that is plenty young and totally still an age where you can thrive in the music industry. So that's what I would say to that is, you know, you can't fight a battle with your parents, you know, when it comes to college. Sometimes that's not something you can win, but you definitely can win the battle after you get done with college. So
and so like if you got the chance to make a song, pop country, with any artist in the world, who would it be and why?
That's a really great question. I think I would probably in the country side, I would do Chris Stapleton. And then I think in the pop side, I would probably do like a Bruno Mars or a Lady Gaga situation.
Okay, and then if you have them, fine. If you don't, but do you have like a top 3 artists of all time, whether it's country, just in general, anything?
Yeah, I think Keith Urban, for sure. I grew up listening to him. So Keith Urban, Frank Sinatra is a huge one for me. Amy Winehouse, too. Love her. I would say Frank Sinatra, Keith Urban, and Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
I love all 3 of those.
And are there any albums, whether from them or from other artists, that you kind of regard as like some of the best albums of all time, or like this album like is a masterpiece, like it couldn't be touched?
Yeah, that is a great one. There's so many out there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have a few, so I'm just going to name a few. But I think Maren Morris's Hero album was incredible, and I think that one is just unbelievable. I also think Dan and Shay's album, their first self-titled album, so that came out 3 years ago, I think, now. It was just called Dan and Shay. I think that album was absolutely incredible. Every song on there felt like a hit, like a number 1 hit, like a radio single. That's what was so cool about that album. And then I think, honestly, those are kind of my 2. Those are my 2 that I go back to. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just like from your own career, is there like maybe a song or an album of yours that is kind of like your favorite, I guess, or like a song that you really feel passionate about, and that like if you can pick one that you feel like that?
Yeah, I think honestly right now the one that I feel really the most passionate about isn't out yet, which is really cool because it's going to come out and I can't wait for people to hear it. But I think right now, I would say Lonely Does is the one that's like got a really, really special place in my heart. That song was like quite the journey writing that. And just the meaning behind it, I think too, is really cool. It has a couple different meanings. So I think that one will always hold a really special place in my heart. So, yeah.
And is there a release date for that yet? Can people start looking forward to that, or not yet?
Well, Lonely Does is already out, but the other song that I'm talking about, I probably can't release any sort of a date yet. Mostly because I don't have a date planned, but also because it needs to be a little bit of an element of surprise in there. But yeah.
That's totally fine. And so now recently you've seen artists kind of talking about maybe before a release or like before they get on stage for a show, they've been opening about kind of their mental state or how maybe they get anxious before a show, but once they start performing, that all just kind of goes away. Do you think this is a good thing, this transparency between artists and fans, and do you think it's something that we'll continue to see?
Absolutely. I think the more transparent you can be with your fans and with yourself, it just makes you that much more calm and comfortable and collected on stage. If you try to hide and hunker everything in and push it down, it starts to show in your stage presence and in your shows, and people will start to notice it whether we hide it well or not. You know, people are good at reading people, and that's what I've learned. And so I just am always very, very comfortable on stage because I just share everything and I don't care. I'm just like, it's relatable. It's got to be relatable to somebody out there in the crowd. So I'm going to share it so that they can feel really comfortable at my shows too. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just making your fans and yourself feel very comfortable and feel that they can be whoever they want to be at your show.
And like, would you say kind of that like feeling of comfort for fans, or that feeling of relatability, is like one of the most important things for live shows?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say that, because if you're not comfortable on stage, then nobody else in the whole entire room is going to feel comfortable. Whether you're in a room full of hundreds of thousands of people, or if you're in a room with just 10 people, you know, like I said, people can tell. So if you're not comfortable, nobody else is comfortable.
Well, thank you so much for that. Those are all the questions I had for today. Where can people find you? Instagram, websites, anything you got, where can they find you?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I love doing podcast interviews. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
But you can find me on every social media page. Instagram is It's Erin Grand. Twitter is the same thing, and Facebook is Erin Grand Music. So you guys can find me on all that, and Spotify and Apple Music, Google Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, all that stuff.
All right. Well, go check out her music. Go follow her on Instagram. And thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.